I think the tie collection's okay. Quick little reminder about with Fahrenheit, when you go to read it, remember under topics, if you go to Fahrenheit 451, on there you do have the audio book. So, and again, you can kind of manipulate the speed when it comes to the audio book if you feel like you're a quicker reader than the voice is doing there. But a lot of times that just kind of help folks keep up with what's going on and reinforce it.
Go to the settings.
I couldn't find it.
If you see where settings is,
Blackstone Audiobooks presents.
and then you go to speed, you could go to like 1 1/4 or 1 1/2.
By Ray Bradford.
Okay. Phone. I don't know where that the thing would be on there, but yeah. Or conversely, and I don't think you'd have to do it with this one, but you could also slow some stuff down too. You know, if there's something that you were going over, you know, again and again and again. All right. I think this was the last thing that we were taking a look at yesterday. So far as claiming to try to prevent the future from happening the way he was seeing it. You saw this statistic earlier in the year when we were talking about the pedestrians so far as TVs. But remember, TVs are kind of like the big concern that Bradbury has at the time. Because 1945, so, you know, you're talking about Civil War, World War II era, you have fewer than 10,000 TV sets in the entire United States. So you have like a TV for less than one TV for every 3,000 people in the country. Then, as you're speeding forward, post-World War I or World War II, and this is right about the time that he's writing the novel in 1951, 1952, you got more than 6 million TV sets. And then post-novel, 1960, you have more than 60 million TV sets, roughly one for every house that would be in the country. So within a 15-year period, you're going from 10,000 to 60 million. Which would probably be, I think the best comparison for our sake would probably be a smartphone. If you were to go back, 12 years ago or so when they were starting, the number of people that had a smartphone, I don't know what it would have been in like 2007, I think was when iPhone started, but it certainly was a smaller number. The amount of smartphones now that you have certainly would be more than probably one per household, not quite one per person in the United States, but that number would be growing, exponentially. So that would be, probably our best parallel. In the book for Fahrenheit, TVs are walls, large screen TV things. So it's not that you're going to be watching a TV, but you would be watching a wall. Montauk's wife, main characters are literally a guy named Guy. Guy Montauk's wife is Millie. Millie loves watching TV. Millie's goal would be that she can watch TV on this wall, on this wall, on this wall, and also behind her. They have 3 walls that have TVs. She wants a 4th. So you would basically be surrounded by TV at all times. And the best parallel for the programming that she watches would basically be like reality shows. So for her, what she sees on TV is like her family. And why he's going with TV would be because this is the medium, this is the form of technology that would be growing nonstop, in the 1940s, 1950s, and 1960s. But there was a thing with like the Consumer Electronic Expo was going on in California, and Samsung, I think, released like a 98-inch TV, that you could put on your wall in your house. This would, be that to even literally a larger degree. And they're selling TVs that you can link together so that if Jack had 9 70-inch TVs, you could have one huge screen as if you were, going to some kind of restaurant or something along those lines. So part of what he's taking a look at is this idea of this dependency on technology, but another thing that he is certainly concerned about is the role of government. We mentioned Cold War progressing in the 1950s. This would be concern about nuclear wars and things of that nature. As the 1950s and Cold War progresses, Bradbury starts to see a government that could start to take more power from its people and have more power over its people, and this really kind of begins to worry him. in what ways can a government have power over people? Like, how can a government get to be too big? I mean, you got a dictatorship, you know, where you are forcing people to do things. Are there other ways in which a government can become too powerful? Like what? I mean, you're right.
TV channel.
Well, what is propaganda?
It's like, I know what it is. What's the definition? Is. I need a minute. Okay, I need to solve it.
Propaganda is when a government uses a sustained media campaign to get ideas out there. So the key idea is it's going to be sustained media. So World War I, even World War II, they talk about posters. Uncle Sam wants you, finger pointing, you know, to join U.S. Army and things like that. But if you control all publications, if you control TV, you can certainly get propaganda out that way. Keep in mind here, what is the big issue? Books are eliminated. So it's not just controlling what's going on in the airwaves, but it's also restricting what people have access to. What do you think is the number one way that most of us probably get our news? I'm thinking probably something online, phone related. You know, it used to be TV, newspaper. I think that's probably been passed by at least internet, web in some way. You'll hear about, if you go to other countries, and China is very strict when it comes to online access. If Logan were to go to China, websites that he looks at now to gain news, he might not have access to. So it's not that the news is necessarily being changed, but the news is being withheld. And reality for us is what we're able to see and what we're able to perceive. If you are able to restrict what people have access to, then you no longer are going to have those thoughts. And that's when he feels that a government becomes too dangerous, when it has that amount of power to control what it is that you learn, what it is that you know. Textbooks get reviewed all the time. How do you learn about history? You know, traditionally in school, textbooks. If your textbook makes no reference of the Vietnam War, then you probably grow up not knowing anything about the Vietnam War. And from the perspective that you're coming from, that event never really happened. Did it occur? Yes. But if you don't have the opportunity to learn about it, then the event really didn't happen. And so that kind of becomes his concern, where books get taken away. If Brendan, and you did say yesterday that books help with wisdom, something along those lines. If he is denied access to books, are you going to want to read them?
I don't read them. I just know they help with wisdom.
Well, but if you're denied access to them, you don't even know they exist. So if he doesn't even know the information is out there, you don't want the information. Separate book, but also kind of future dystopia. Some of you might read it in 12th grade. There's a book called 1984. It's written in the 40s, takes place in 1984. What happens with the government is they change the language. So words get eliminated. So instead of something being, Jack, if it's good, but it's even better doesn't exist.
Gooder.
Double plus good. You don't say better, you don't say best, it's double plus good. Or triple plus good. So you're focused only on using this one word, but you increase, it's almost like an exponent. So what happens as the words disappear, you don't say them, you don't think them, you don't communicate them. And that's kind of what would be happening with the books in this case for Fahrenheit 451. Also, the Ministry of Love, Brendan, the Ministry of Love is the police force in 1984.
I'm gonna start typing like that. I'm gonna work on it so.
Well, I don't know.
Says same police.
All right, background for this. Certainly write this stuff down word for word so that we know what is going on. Setting of the book, 24th century. So we're moving forward. Currently, which century are we in? 21st. Remember, you take like the first two numbers and you add one, so we're not in the 20th century, but we are in the 21st century. Because when you're in the year 50, 050, that would still be the first century. So when you hit the year 101, that became the second century. But yeah, when you say the 19th century, automatically some folks would go the 1900s. 19th century would be 1800s. So yeah, you're in the 21st century. So this is the 24th century, so we're in the 2300s. Books are dangerous, they're considered to be illegal. We are within the United States, by the way, as to where this is taking place. Nobody is allowed to own them. If you do own them, they are going to be burned. People are happy to not have books and are certainly happy to be plugged into their technology where they don't have to worry about thinking too hard and difficult tasks. So schooling would have absolutely nothing to do with books. If books are found, if books are discovered, they are to be burned immediately. Some do, yeah. Yeah. I mean, you'll come across some of those circumstances, but the way that it would be presented, that would be an outlier. The typical person, like in a room of 20, maybe one person or two people would have, something like that. But books would still exist, but it would be much more underground than mainstream.
So they go to the black market, buy like body parts or something weird, and go to the black market and buy the book.
Or if Jack did something to tick you off, you could go to the quote-unquote police or the fire department and go, I'm pretty sure Jack has books if you were to look in his house, at which point his house is probably going to get burned down. So it's not just that you don't want to read books, but it would be you don't even want to have any association with them because you're going to be guilty by association if people think you have books.
I thought I was just so many times. No, guilty by association.
Not for having books.
Basically.
Mr. Weber calls you down. I hear you have a book. Mr. Kane gave it to me. It's not my fault.
You were reading in the bathroom.
So in the big thing, firefighters don't stop fires, they end up starting them. So, Brendan,
Yeah.
propaganda.
It's probably
You could kind of argue in some way that, like, right now memes would be kind of the closest thing we have to, like, propaganda so far as posters and stuff of that
I
nature.
don't know about that. Yeah, I was about to say, it's a big chunk of the road. All my sisters have.
All right, definition that we're going to use quite a bit is going to be dystopia. So this is a dystopic novel. Generally, when it comes to opia words, we think of utopia. Utopia is the perfect, ideal place. A dystopia is meant to be a futuristic place that is not ideal. So it's future, but it's bleak, dark, dreary. So Fahrenheit 451 is considered to be a dystopic novel. You book about...
The big chungus. Yeah, I don't know why big chungus is like my favorite.
You folks are reading Fahrenheit 451. If you have any friends or know people who'd be like taking pre-AP English 10, they read Brave New World. That would be considered a dystopic novel. I mentioned to you, some of you will read 1984, War of the Worlds. All those things would kind of be considered to be dystopic. So the future is not looking so good. I, Robot would be considered like dystopic. Yeah. Hunger Games, Divergent, all those things. There are going to be a lot of themes that we're going to mention here coming up, but the two main ones that the novel focuses on, and it's not saying this one number one, this one number two, but they would be pretty equal. Censorship, which you had some questions kind of about. Should some ideas be limited so far as people speaking out against the government or forms of TV, music, media, whatever the case may be. And then also ignorance of knowledge. Keep in mind, ignorance just simply means not knowing, not aware. Not ignorant in the sense of, you kicked my shins. That was ignorant or rude. Ignorance means not knowing, not aware. So that's the type of ignorance that we would be looking at. Ignorance of knowledge where people are unaware of what's going on. So you could argue if someone is plugged into earbuds and they walk down the hall and they make a turn and walk like right into the corner, that they were ignorant of their surroundings since they were kind of plugged in. makes it even worse.
It was awful. And a lot of people just not gonna marry.
A lot of people. So censorship, ignorance of knowledge would be the two ideas that we keep coming back to, but there's certainly going to be some more. Censorship. So far as definition, what we mean is going to be the suppression of speech, or it could be the deletion of it, where you cannot communicate any material that's considered to be objectionable, harmful, sensitive, or inconvenient to the government. So when it comes to censorship, we're talking about the limitation, the suppression, or the deletion of material that is going to be considered dangerous, harmful, sensitive in nature. That doesn't just mean, words not approved by the FCC, to be on TV or radio stations or things like that, but certainly ideas can be considered harmful, dangerous, if it's going to cause people to rebel, revolt against government, things of that nature. And so the questions that then kind of fall underneath it that we take a look at: why would something end up being censored? What are the dangers of censorship? Certainly the environment would kind of play a role into what would something be censored. As 15, 16-year-olds, for most of you, some material would be considered appropriate that would have to get censored for an 8-year-old. And also, whether it is a school environment, home environment, work environment, entertainment environment, social environment, different things could be censored or not censored based on where you are at. Could also be like professional environment. You can certainly have religious freedoms and the ability to express religious views. As a teacher in a public school, should I express religious views? No, because I can't do anything that would make it seem as if this is what I want you to believe. Can I express various religions throughout the world? Sure, as long as it gets done, in an objective manner. But something that would be appropriate in a church or a synagogue, temple, wouldn't be considered to be appropriate in a public school. Yet if you were teaching in a parochial school or some other kind of religious-based school, obviously those conversations could take place because it's not public. So time, location, profession, all those things could end up being part of what makes something censored or appropriate, not appropriate. Dangers of censorship would kind of be what we were just talking about before. The primary one within the book that we'll explore is this overall ignorance of knowledge probably becomes the biggest danger when it comes to what happens if there is too much censorship. Ignorance of knowledge, so that other theme. Bradbury focuses on the importance of learning and how it impacts our ability to make decisions. He believes that without the ability to think about what we're doing, we'll be led to do wrong things because we don't think about it. Obviously, you have a picture of a nice little cute lamb up here, little sheep.
I thought he's going to the slaughter.
Well, and the idea is, what do sheep do? They just follow one another. So if you do have that innocent lamb going to the slaughter, another one could be coming, and another one could be coming. So they're not necessarily thinking for themselves, which is what he's trying to avoid. Brennan, look at that sad face that it has. You just mentioned the slaughter, and now it's poor little lamb. Have you had a leg of lamb since then? All right, other themes to keep an eye out for. Nate, how's this cover? Yeah. Gentlemen. Nate, do you need me to zoom in on anything? Okay. other common book cover art that you have, if you have the 50th anniversary edition, is it does kind of look like skeleton, but you can see the person is like made out of pages, paper coming from the books, and completely on fire, which is kind of a scene that we'll sort of come across within part one to keep an eye on. Other themes that we're going to certainly kind of talk about: individual self-expression is important. The idea of conformity, doing what you think is best versus what everyone else wants you to do. Violence as being self-destructive. Mindless pleasure-seeking and materialism make for an empty life. So the idea that his wife wants to be surrounded by TVs would be an example of materialism, but is there really any kind of depth happening to her life whatsoever? Humanity should preserve and value the culture of the past. You'll hear folks maybe arguing like, why is history so important? You have to learn from the past in order to live better for the future. So if you don't know what happened in the past, positive or negative, then it can impact you in a positive way, whether it be in the present or moving forward. You could end up having the same mistakes repeated over and over and over. If a government is able to limit the ideas, of rebellion and things like that, people don't necessarily know then why rebellion took place, how they have been successful or unsuccessful. So it's important to learn from the past so that you don't keep making the same mistakes again and again and again. One of the big things that we'll certainly look at going along with this, I would say, would be with the first one: individual self-expression is important. The idea of being a person as opposed to simply conforming and doing what everyone else is, but the idea that you'll be looking for your own way to express and your own way to live your life. One of the dangers would be if you do anything that draws attention to yourself, then you become immediately suspected of being a rebel. And then Jack has books in his attic, and then we have to work his house. We don't want that to happen. A few more themes. We're writing these down. Told you we have a lot of themes. Humanity has the ability to be reborn or revived. In the wrong hands, modern technology can be dangerous. Commercialism can erode spiritual values, and really materialism would go along with that as well. And people lose their humanity when not able to communicate and interact with each other on a more personal level. So the whole idea about, with the book statement yesterday that you were agreeing or disagreeing with, the books bring wisdom, also mentioned the idea that you can relate well to other folks. Bradbury would argue that people lose their ability to be human or part of their humanity if they can't interact with each other on a more personal level. His argument would be books kind of allow for that to happen, or at least the skills used for books would allow that to happen, as opposed to watching TV nonstop, having earbuds in, where it's strictly going to be you focusing only on yourself. Bradbury's greatest fear is not that, in the future people will have books censored or information will be censored or burned. His greatest fear would be that people would no longer desire any of that stuff. So it's one thing if you live in a totalitarian government or a dictatorship where we're going to take something away. His fear would be, well, I don't desire anything. I'm happy just to do whatever the government tells me to. That's his greatest fear that we have. Form of action. Connor almost had this great, just kind of nodded that head up. That usually doesn't work.
Yeah, but all these people, like, hey,
But if you become a dictator, what do you accumulate? Power. And the argument would be that ultimately that power is going to corrupt someone. That, you could be a good person and you could have good ideas, but once you accumulate more power, that's what ends up proving. Some argue power is happiness, or happiness is power, but at the same time, all those things together might not end up being good for everyone else. All right, symbols that we're going to be taking a look at, as well as some other things. Fire and burning obviously go together. Water, I'll explain these with the salamander, mechanical hound, and then the titles of each of the sections that we have. What you are reading for Tuesday of next week, and you kind of have like a double title for it, is the hearth and the salamander. So part 1, chapter 1, hearth and salamander. Hearth you recently had as a vocabulary. Remember what it is? Hearth. It's by the fireplace. It would be like the floor, the brickwork, all that stuff that goes with the fireplace. The idea for a hearth, when you say a hearth, people get the warm and fuzzy feeling, feels like home. It's a nice place to be. It's a term that kind of gets used more with that, but you know, we would say at Christmas time, hang your stockings along the hearth for Santa Claus and all that kind of stuff, or you have a nice fire going. But it has kind of like a homey feel to it. Wait a minute. The ironic part is we're talking about a future dystopic world where bleak, not positive things of that nature. So hearth and dystopia are going to basically go against one another. Salamander, and then after salamander, Nate, you can go to the restroom. Salamander is going to be one of the symbols. It's one of the symbols that the firemen wear. They have a salamander patch from a, kind of like medieval, old, and this goes medieval times and even before, Romans as well. The salamander is kind of considered a mystical creature in a lot of cultures because people thought that it could withstand fire. So firemen have this creature, the salamander patch on them. They are burning things. The idea was that the salamander would be able to survive fire. I think no one knows for sure why it started, but one of the arguments is if you would burn a log and there were salamanders in it, that as they were burning it, the salamanders would start to come out of the log once it was catching on fire, but it wasn't immediate. It was kind of a slow thing that would occur. Salamander can be burned and can certainly die, but people thought it could exist in fire longer than other animals. So there's kind of like this symbolic connection between salamander and fire. You can go back. Well, and that's not going to happen until later on. But one of the other patches that they have is a phoenix, where if you go to the symbols that we were, or not the symbols, to the themes that we were talking about, humanity has the ability to be reborn or revived. A phoenix is a creature that lives for 500 years, and then it basically catches on fire, burns itself, and one is reborn from it. So this idea of fire, I think we think of fire as being more negative than anything else because of it burning, but it does have the potential to bring new life if you think about it from a phoenix standpoint. And also, what makes us happy when we're outside?
Fire, the sun.
Generally the sun, because we don't see any of it. What is the sun? It's one big, massive fireball. So it is something that also sustains life, but it also gets used in certainly a negative way if things are getting burned. So the titles of each section end up being fairly significant, but yeah, Phoenix, Salamander, as well as the number 451, those are all critical to the fire department. Mechanical Hound is kind of going to be a little bit of an antagonistic force throughout the course of the book. The hound's job is to sense and find books. So if the hound starts sniffing around Josh, we go, uh-oh, where's the paper? He's got books. So that's kind of like this AI technology aspect that goes along with it. When you think of fire departments, Dalmatians, dogs that would be on the fire trucks, this is a much more sadistic kind of quote-unquote animal that would be showing up for us in the book.
So it's paper related too, or that's just what
There's really, the books themselves are illegal. Really, free thought that would get written down would be illegal. You're not going to get arrested for having paper, but there's really no reason why you would have paper. Now you could what if I want to draw and things like that? There's really no mention of art, creativity, that kind of stuff. You're simply kind of zoned in. So it doesn't really get mentioned. If Maddie had a stack of paper and we looked at them and they were all blank, there weren't any words on it, we can't do anything to her, but she would kind of become prime suspect number one as to why does she have paper, where we kind of keep on at her.
So couldn't a radical group just go to a forest and then
Or live in a forest and just like make people.
Sure, but if you want to live within a society, and this is something that either we do or your families do, if you want to live within a society, you have to contribute to it. So there's various ways that people contribute: vote, serve in military, pay taxes. So if you want protection of the government, you have to do certain things. If you want to be a radical group and go live off in the far-off lanes, you can, but then you're forced to leave the protection of your government, your society, your comfort zone. So it's kind of a balance act that you have to do.
And I'm not doing that this. Oh, you mean living with wood? Well, no, I'm not gonna be doing radical just because I can't read that.
I think, well, and the other thing to kind of think about it with the whole reading thing, it's not just like the reading of books, but how can you go through a day without literally reading anything becomes tricky. Even if you're not focused on it, you could still look at the sideboard and go, I read Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Introduction to Rhetoric, oh, that's not my class. The idea of not reading becomes
Like you can't look at a single letter
abstract
and know what it is.
Yeah, like if you're on a bus, you can advertise
If you're deaf, or if you're deaf, are you just kind of like screwed?
if you're
Deaf. Yeah, because is like Braille illegal too? Would Braille be illegal too? Man, if you're just disabled, you're screwed. I just don't want to write that. Yeah. Maybe that's what they did. You get caught with books, they blind.
In a futuristic society, we can take all those physical ailments and we can fix them. So that person can now But no, I mean, Braille would be considered a book.
Wait, isn't it like 200-foot long billboards? That's technically, we have to read them. Or is it just like